The NBA offseason is in full swing and it is decision time for Daryl Morey for this Sixers roster. We have some news on a couple young talents on this Sixers team who have their futures going in a bit different directions. For one, the end of the road for an era. For the other, just the start here in Philadelphia with this pertaining to Jared Butler and Justin Edwards. I'm going to dive into the latest of what we know about their contracts with Jared Butler seeing the end of the road after being traded midseason. Let's not forget a pretty interesting trade in which Reggie Jackson and a first-round pick were sent for Jared Butler and 4 second-rounders, a bit of a kind of a movement and value situations. We're seeing a bit of an increase in the value of second-round picks in the NBA, and of course, a belief in Jared Butler. And we got this update starting from PHLY's Kyle Neubeck here, who tweets, Sixers are declining Jared Butler's team option per source. And to give a little bit of context here, that Austin Krell of On Patterson tweets, little summary of Jared Butler's option being declined. The Sixers technically free up $2.35 million, which ultimately does not add much flexibility because they're moving around aprons this summer. He could return on one of their exceptions, ostensibly a veteran's minimum, but is a free agent now. And we got a little more depth from Sixers Adam of Philly Voice here, who writes, Butler will be an unrestricted free agent, and while there is nothing preventing the Sixers from bringing him back into the fold, the team's lack of willingness to pick up an option at just a hair over the veteran's minimum salary might not bode well for his chances of returning to Philadelphia. The Sixers had to make a decision on Butler's team option by June 29th. The same goes for Lonnie Walker at $2.9 million. A bit of a more difficult conversation, I think, about the status of Lonnie, but the article continues and says, and ultimately opted against guaranteeing his salary for next season. This does not give the team any additional spending power when free agency begins on June 30th, but if the Sixers do not have complete faith in Butler as a member of their standard roster, it would not have made sense to guarantee him money. It is possible that the Sixers still like Butler, but would rather evaluate their options than commit a roster spot to him before free agency opens and will keep the door open for potential returns. But the likelihood of Butler sticking with the Sixers has taken a major hit. And to be perfectly honest, I do think this is the end of the Jared Butler era here in Philadelphia. I think it is one Baylor guard in VJ Edgecombe and one Baylor guard out in Butler there. Now, I like Jared Butler. I think he's a good basketball player. I think he is an NBA player, but I don't think it is going to be here in Philadelphia. We've talked plenty about how many guards have been brought into this roster here, from Tyrese Maxey to Jared McCain to Quentin Grimes to, of course, VJ Edgecombe now, that it is going to be crowded and difficult to carve out a spot, and I do think that it's probably best for both sides to go their opposite directions. But it is not the end of the road for our very own Justin Edwards, as we got a major update here stating that the Philadelphia 76ers intend to sign forward Justin Edwards to a 3-year contract after declining his team option, sources tell ESPN. 76ers and Clutch Sports' Rich Paul and Josh Harris negotiated a new deal for Edwards, who averaged 10.1 points and 26 minutes last season. Now, for Edwards, a bit of a different contractual situation. In both cases, the teams were in full control with a team option there. Daryl Morey has been pretty cognizant of that, and while I know I just dropped a video speaking about Andre Drummond having control with his player option, Kelly Oubre and Eric Gordon in those same shoes where they controlled the decision here, this was a spot where the Sixers had full control. And for Edwards specifically, this is a home run and great business practice from start to finish. For starters, this is a high-caliber kid, a dude who was one of the best recruits in the country, the number one recruit in the country for a stretch of time, and he's the first number one recruit to go undrafted since 2014 here. He did not ultimately pan out at Kentucky in the way that was expected. I think him underperforming is honestly overstated, that the John Calipari systems can be a bit weird, and I believe he was the last of John Calipari's class there, but ultimately he's found himself at the NBA level, and the talent does speak for himself. This is the type of athletic, switchable, versatile wings that this team should be investing in to the fullest extent, and they got him on as bargain of a contract as you will find in the NBA. And to lay out those numbers exactly here, that Adam Aronson, Sixers Adam, tweets out, if Shams is reporting that Justin Edwards will make exactly $2 million in 25-26, this should be a 3-year, $6.3 million deal, assuming Edwards gets maximum annual raises of 5% as a non-bird free agent. So that is $2 million next year, $2.1 million the following year, and $2.2 in the 27-28 season, to a total of $6.3 million. While that is plenty great money for the average human being, don't get me wrong. By NBA standards, that is a bargain for Justin Edwards, and a guy that I think the Sixers are going to have in one of the best value contracts in the NBA for years to come here. That this is a guy that can fill whatever role the Sixers are asking from. We saw him capable of scaling up to an extent at the end of the season, and what I've been most impressed with about Justin Edwards from start to finish is he's found his lane in the NBA. That not everybody's going to be able to cook on the perimeter. Not everyone's going to be able to have the ball in their hands a ton. He was totally comfortable strapping up on the defensive end and playing a low usage role, taking the catch and shoot looks when they are there, making smart cuts off ball and playing off his teammates there. It was a 10 out of 10 rookie season for Justin Edwards, who I think exceeded even the most optimistic of expectations based on him coming from the undrafted market. So to Daryl Morey specifically, huge hat tip here that you nailed the talent evaluation, and I personally give him a ton of credit for that because it's still an undrafted guy. I understand he had pedigree and he had this top recruit, but the bottom line is you got the dude. You evaluated that he fell out of the draft and said, we want that guy, and accomplished that. Then you brought him along in a rookie season where we started him, start off with the Blue Coats, begin at the G League. And then as the season fell apart, as the bodies disappeared on this Sixers roster, that he began to see opportunities. And he made the most of those and carved out a lane for himself in Philadelphia on this Sixers team. So hat tip to Justin Edwards overall. Now, we still have plenty more decisions to make regarding the roster for this Sixers team. Still a couple deadlines coming up. Lonnie Walker is a really interesting case to me. And truthfully, not exactly sure how I feel about the Lonnie situation. I like Lonnie Walker as a basketball player. It was fun having him on the team last year. And I do think it was, calculated by the Sixers to have this type of option where they're in control, but the backcourt got more crowded, man. There are guards across the board on this team. And to take a peek at this Sixers depth chart here, that there is Tyrese Maxey, Jared Butler, who's no longer with us on this Sixers team, VJ Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain there. Eric Gordon sounds like he does plan on sticking around, and there's even the buzz about a Kyle Lowry return. I think VJ Edgecombe repping number 77 is a pretty good indication that 7 is going to be taken by Lowry himself last year. Do kind of hate to see that, and I like Kyle Lowry. I'm very appreciative of all that he's done for Philadelphia basketball and the successful career that he did have, but boy, does that man look old out there, and I do think that a better outcome for all parties involved here would be sliding across that line and just taking an assistant coach gig. I get that the pay is not the same there, and I think Lowry, truthfully, very much wanted to return to Philadelphia to have this one final season where he's, can ride off into the sunset, and things have not played out that way. So I think he wants to run it back for one more year, and every indication is thinking that. Now, obviously, Lonnie Walker decision, Kelly Oubre has to make that call on his own, whether he opts into the player option. The perception is that he will and wants to stick in Philadelphia for a bit over $8 million there. And Eric Gordon, the little dance that I expect to occur there is that he will opt out of his player option and then return on a veteran's minimum in Philadelphia. He ends up getting a bit of a pay raise because of that, the salary cap increase, which means the minimums increase. So by declining the player option and taking a veteran's minimum, he would get a raise in that. So for the Sixers overall, a lot of moving parts in the short term. There are still the bigger questions that need to be answered in the offseason as a whole. But to Jared Butler, thank you for the season. Appreciative of what he brought. I do think that was a guy that competed in some of the worst stretches of Sixers basketball that I can ever remember there. And to Justin Edwards, I think this is only the start. That I really do believe that his ceiling may be a bit higher than people are realizing. There's a very good chance that, and I think even right now, if we were to do redrafts of last year's class, that Justin Edwards is probably cracking that first round. I think he was that good last year and is that important from a positional standpoint in today's NBA. So a hat tip to Daryl Morey for absolutely nailing that. We will see what ultimately unfolds from here. Still plenty to get into on the offseason, so make sure you guys are tapping in with us here on Sixers Digest. Drop your thoughts on these moves below. Your ultimate ceiling for Justin Edwards, would love to hear that in the comments. If you guys have a player comparison or a role that you believe that he will fill or ultimately be on this Sixers team, drop those thoughts below. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video here. I'll be back talking with you next time. Peace.